back to Cooking with Keith. I'm your host, Chef Keith, and today we're going to be doing a lovely butternut squash risotto topped with seared Maine scallops. It'll be a delicious dish, and follow my 3 steps and you'll have it mastered in no time at all. Step 1 will be a vegetable stock. You can do a meat stock, a chicken stock, a vegetable stock, or a seafood stock. But the primary flavoring for the risotto today will be the butternut squash. So we're going to stick to a lighter stock, vegetable stock. Step 1 will be that. Step 2 will be preparing our butternut squash. We're going to do a puree and some cubed butternut squash to go in with the rice at the beginning of the stage of cooking. And then step 3 will be concurrently cooking the risotto and the scallops, and then finishing the dish and plating. So let's get started, shall we? What you'll need for the vegetable stock is white onion, whole white peppercorns, parsley with their stems, fresh thyme, a tomato, a couple of carrot sticks, and some mushrooms for a nice umami richness in the stock. We will start by putting our carrots in, putting all these in. We'll actually slice the tomato, take that little stem out. We can just quarter it, that's fine. We'll put it in there gently. We'll just grab our onion and we'll just slice it down. Let's give it a little peel of the outer skin. One of the important things that I like to emphasize is using, in our restaurant, we use basically, I would say the majority of all of our produce is organic, and people are trying to live a cleaner life these days with less chemicals in their food. So almost all of our, what we could get in almost everything is organic. So there we are, the onions. We'll put the thyme in, and the rosemary, as well as a few bay leaves, a couple of bay leaves from our outdoor garden. We'll put those in, and lastly, we'll quarter these mushrooms, and then I'll give a nice little umami kick to the broth. And then lastly, a few, about 8 or 9 white peppercorns, whole. And this is gonna basically, we'll bring it up to a boil, and then we'll let it simmer for about 45 minutes, and then we'll straighten it. I've used this pasta pot with the holes around the side, so you can actually easily lift the basket up and take all the ingredients out, and then you have your stock ready to go for the risotto. One of the important things about risotto too is to make sure your stock is hot. Don't put cold, it's really not a good idea, I think, to put cold stock into in-process cooking of the risotto. It really makes a big difference in quality to keep it hot. You don't want to put something in that's room temp or out of the fridge. It'll just kind of mess with the process and could disturb the starch production. And it's about a starchy dish. You want it to be loose and pourable too at the end, not tightened up. So that's another thing I'll show you, that it should be able to put it on the plate and it should be able to kind of roll like lava. And that's a sign of a really good texture in the risotto. So we'll let that go for 45 minutes and we'll start on our butternut squash now. And to butternut squash, this can be a very tricky vegetable. It's very easy to hurt yourself with this. So what I do is go to the middle part right there, and I'll just slice down. And you can turn it a little bit. The most important thing is not to be going up here and trying to do things. It can slip real easy. You can see it's round and it's hard, and a lot of times knives will just, even if you're well trained, if you're not careful, this thing can slip off and really hurt you. So we're gonna just go down and just peel. The key to me for this is to keep it flat. Have flat places where you can hold and it's stable. So we're gonna go down and peel. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but on a butternut squash, you can actually eat the outside. You can eat the skin if you roast it, if you slice it into discs and roast it. It's actually edible, but for this preparation, we want that extra fiber gone, and we want to keep it more about the orange flesh inside. So another thing, if it's too tall and it still can be a little unwieldy, cut it into little sections and keep it flat. And that way you'll always be pretty much guaranteed you'll be safe. You see there's no wiggle, it's not wiggling, it's not unbalanced. And you can actually go, and without a peeler, you can actually use your knife. We're going to slice this rather thin from the top again to keep it safe. We'll just go like this. And we're going to do it really thin because we're going to boil it in water until about 10 minutes so that it gets tender, and then we'll bring our stick blender in and we'll just puree it, and that'll be our puree for the risotto. I'm actually going to cut it into batons it'll cook even quicker this way. Again, keep everything flat on the board. Don't stack it too high so your knife work is safe. I'm doing a 2-person portion today, so that should be plenty. If you're enjoying this video, please like and subscribe and share with a friend. And now back to the action. So we're going to go ahead and you don't have to wait for this to come to a boil. You can just put it in. The main principle on this one is just to get it hot and boiled so that it, and not boil it for a long time. We just want to get, you can just test it every few minutes or so once it starts boiling, and you'll be able to tell when it's soft enough to puree with a stick blender. We will get rid of most of the water though, because we want to make sure that it's not too liquidy. But again, it's going to be blended into the rice, so it doesn't have to be a certain percentage of water. You just don't want it to be too soupy. So we'll do this last part here, we'll cut into cubes. And this will go into the risotto dish itself about 1/3 of the way through cooking the risotto. And we will cube this. So we're going to cube it into maybe, let's say 1/3 of an inch cubes. That will be plenty for 2 people. So that's probably about maybe 3/4 of a cup by volume. And there we have it. And so our mise en place is getting there. And we're going to be using carnaroli rice. There's arborio rice and carnaroli rice in the Piedmont region. We prefer the carnaroli. It has a richer starch content, and it really makes them for a more creamy risotto. So we're going to be using this, and this is going to be done as an antipasto plate, basically served before a main course. So we're going to be using just 1/3 of a cup of rice per person. So I'm doing, again, a 2-person serving today, so I'll be using 2/3 of a cup of rice. And now that it's been 5 or 6 minutes of boiling, we turned it down to a low simmer, and we're going to simply drain that. We're going to actually pull that out and put it into a round cylinder that we can use our immersion blender. So we'll just take all this out. And we'll get a little bit of the cooking water to have a little bit of a puree in there to help it puree. There we are. And we'll grab our trusty immersion blender. Again, we don't need to put any seasoning in this because it's going to be put into the risotto while it's cooking, and that will be seasoned as we go along. And that's perfect. We have that done. So now we have that ready. We'll go ahead and drain our vegetables out of our vegetable stock. It's been going for almost an hour now. So we'll go ahead and lift it up slowly, turn it to the side, let it drain, just give it a little shake. Take the vegetables away. They've done their job. And now we're left with lovely hot vegetable broth for our risotto. And now step 3, cooking our risotto and scallops. We'll start with our pan and get it warm. Many times you'll see people prepare pans in a tall casserole pan, but this is for 2 people, so this pan is more than sufficient. And I like to use a lid to let it rest right before we monte it with lots of, not lots, but with a bit of butter and Parmesan. We will get a shallot. We're going to prep this by skinning it and finely dicing. For 2 people, we only need about this much shallot. So we're going to go ahead and, not finely actually, I said finely, but kind of medium. And I like to use olive oil to start everything, not butter, to make sure it doesn't split. So we'll put some of this nice olive oil, extra virgin olive oil we get from Greece. We'll go ahead and put those shallots in. You don't want the pan too hot. You can't really hear it sizzle, and that's a good thing actually. You don't want it to accidentally start browning too much, so we'll just give that a little stir. Now it's starting to sizzle a little. So that's what we want, but we don't want it to be burning any part of it. So we're going to go ahead and turn it down almost to the bottom range. Now that it's starting to get soft, we will go ahead and add our carnaroli rice, and we'll just put it all around the pan. And then we will stir again to coat. And this is where it requires patience, because a lot of people want to turn up the heat and get it going really fast. But the important part of risotto is to take your time and be patient. It'll all come together in 15 to 18 minutes. We'll keep stirring, and now we'll add our white wine. We have about 2/3 of a cup of white wine. We'll put about half of that in, actually, about 1/3 cup. Give a nice fruitiness and nice acidity to the dish to get it going, kind of jump start it. And you can use any non-sweet white wine would do. I'm using Pinot Grigio from Italy. It just seems appropriate to kind of use Italian white wine for risotto. But you could use really any white wine you wanted. I wouldn't use anything with a lot of oak. And so we just keep stirring, and now it's absorbed the white wine, and we're going to add a ladle of the vegetable broth. Just one ladle at a time till we moisten the whole lot, and we'll stir that. So this will be a labor of love here for the next 10 to 12 minutes. We'll be stirring and watching patiently to see when it's going to need another infusion of stock. In about 12 minutes, we will be searing our scallops to put on top. So what I'm going to do is just slightly heat this pan, turn on low so it'll be more or less ready when we're ready to add the scallops. And for the scallops today, we'll actually be using avocado oil to sear. Some people use clarified butter or ghee or olive oil, but olive oil, you know, it does have about a 350 degree smoke point, so avocado is much higher, so we're going to use that because we're going to kind of blast that pan up when we sear our scallops. And it's looking, see, it's still a little liquidy, so we're going to give that a little stir. And now it's to the point where it's getting kind of thick, so we'll go ahead and add another ladle. And now at this point we'll actually add our cubed butternut squash. And by the time this risotto is done in about 10 more minutes, these cubes of butternut squash will be nice and tender. Towards the end of that cooking process, we'll be adding our puree, of course. So we'll be adding that and maybe a ladle on down the line. At this point, I'll add a little bit of salt and a little bit of freshly ground white pepper. And we'll keep stirring. Another time for another ladle. And now we'll be adding another ladle. It's starting to get together. I can see by the visually that it's starting to, the rice grains are starting to plump up. So at this stage, I'm going to go ahead and add the puree, and that'll kind of do as another infusion of liquid, but we're going to go ahead and see that nice beautiful color. It's going to infuse into the dish. It'll be a very nice colorful dish to plate the scallops on. And so we'll let that go for a little bit. And we have some lovely Maine scallops that we're going to be putting on top, so we'll be searing those in just a couple of minutes. In the meantime, we'll just lightly salt these. Pepper, a little ground white pepper. And just about 2 minutes we will sear these off. We'll concentrate on finishing our risotto and getting it closer. So I'm going to move the stove a little closer to me so I can kind of smell it. It's had a really nice smell. I just like to cook with my senses so I can listen, smell, stir, kind of gauge where everything is at. And it's a really nice, rich aroma that I'm getting, and it's going to be a lovely, lovely dish. So I'm actually going to test for salt and seasoning. This needs a pinch maybe of salt. And that may be all the salt it'll require, because we'll be adding some grated Parmesan at the end and some unsalted butter. I usually start the process in the pan with olive oil and finish with butter. And so here it's coming along very nice. Maybe about 4 more minutes and it should be done. Now that the risotto is absorbing the puree of the butternut and the last ladle of vegetable stock, we're just getting closer. It's probably 2 minutes away to be at the stage to add the butter and the Parmesan, and I like to let it rest for about a minute, and then I like to go and stir it up quickly, kind of making a lovely sauce with the butter and Parmesan. Maybe one more ladle. I'm actually going to taste the actual grains now and see where we're at. One more minute, and then I'll add the butter and the Parmesan. I'll lightly stir it. We'll put the lid on, let it rest for 2 minutes while we sear our scallops. And then we'll go back and we'll really stir up the risotto, and it should be ready to plate. And now we're getting there. I think it's just about ready to add the butter and the Parmesan. And you can see it's kind of thick, but it's also runny. But it's actually going, when we let it sit, it's actually going to absorb even more of that liquid. So I'm going to buffer that by adding about another half a ladle. Because again, we want our risotto to be pourable. We don't want it to be thick on the plate. We want it to be able to spread around on the plate. That's just more of the sign, technically, of a good risotto. So we want you to be able to make a good, technically sound risotto. So that's what we're going to be concentrating on. And even then, I think I'm going to put just a little more. Maybe it will end up being another whole ladle overall. So we're going to go ahead and get that in there. I'm going to take another little spoon and test the butternut squash to make sure it's done. Right on the edge. It'll be done in about 2 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and add some Parmesan that we pre-grated with a microplane. And we're going to add about 2.5 tablespoons of butter, unsalted butter. We're going to go ahead and give that a little bit of a stir, but not much, just kind of get it in there. And we're going to actually cover it right now and just let it sit off the heat, with the fire off, I should say. And so to sear our scallops, we'll be using some avocado oil. We are now a seed oil-free restaurant because we believe a lot of the health concerns about inflammation are warranted, and so we're actually moving away. We have moved away completely from seed oil, and we use extra virgin olive oil and butter and ghee and things like that. So that's all we're using. So we're going to go ahead and crank this heat up because it does have a high smoke point, one of the advantages of avocado oil. And so we've already been preheating our pan for a long time, so it should be just about ready to put in. I'll grab some of our tongs, and we'll go ahead and turn this over, put it right in there. There we go. Now the scallops have been searing nicely, we're going to check them. We'll turn them over. They're doing a nice crust on the top. Those are looking good. We'll let them just keep on going with a little bit of a lower heat. And now we'll actually finish our risotto by, you can see it's nice and textured. We're going to move it around, stir it clockwise just really quickly. And that's looking lovely. It's nice and velvety and pourable, but not liquidy, just nice, almost like lava. It's really where we want it, right there. It's perfect. We're going to taste this. That is really, really good, really excellent. And we'll be ready to plate as soon as these are done. I think they're done. We're going to go ahead and just turn off the fire and let them continue to cook with the residual heat. And we'll go ahead and actually plate this now. We'll go ahead and pour a little bit. There we are. And you can see it kind of is pourable to a certain extent, and that's what we want. We want that right there. A beautiful dish of butternut squash risotto. And now we'll be adding our scallops. Let's give those a little drain and put 3 on the plate. And then we'll finish it with a little bit of Parmesan. Maybe another little crack of pepper. And now my favorite part will be tasting, giving it a test and see how it went. Excellent risotto, very well cooked. I'm going to try one of these scallops. I can't tell you how good that combination is. That's a great combination with the butternut squash. I think squash and pumpkin goes really, really well with seared scallops, as well as corn. But I think the butternut squash is a bit better than corn for a risotto dish. Excellent. Excellent quality. And I'm experiencing the sweetness, of course, of the scallops, and the earthiness and the bright orange intensity of that butternut squash shining through. It's really a excellent combination. And the risotto is just tender. It's not tough at all. It's just where it needs to be, al dente. I would highly recommend doing this. This is a lovely dish, and we're going into the fall soon. It'll be a wonderful time to have from now to the end of summer till fall is a great time for butternut squash. So I do hope you try this at home. Enjoy. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe and share with a friend. We'd love to hear from you. Buon appetito.